Hi.
The range of an orchestra. The pitch range of the orchestra is enormous and far greater than any of the traditional ensembles, be they marching bands, rock bands, jazz band, or string band. A few things I'd like you to consider are the craft. How does one learn it? I propose that one of the best ways of learning is by doing reductions of classical and Romantic era scores. Scores you're familiar with. Many people are conversant with something like Nutcracker Suite. Do a reduction, see how it works. That reduction is not dissimilar from what a composer such as John Williams will provide to his orchestrator. It will typically have two systems for woodwinds, two for brass, two for strings, an occasional two extra lines, so an 8-line reduction. Those staves would be an 8-line staff reduction. The 7th and 8th lines would be reserved for additional instruments, percussion, harp, celeste, piano. The purpose of this is to be able to see at a glance the role of each section of the orchestra, the proportion of the music in which it plays a textural role, a harmonic role, the proportion in which it plays a linear role, melodic, the number of times that basses are doubled, for example, throughout the orchestra, that you might often want the reinforcement of the string basses with bassoons, perhaps with tuba. You can see at a glance how the great orchestrator will be able to take material to orchestrate a crescendo, for example, in order to emphasize far beyond what one could at the piano or with other instrumentation. A great range of dynamics. So how do you do that? The best way to learn it is to reduce orchestrations. Another way to learn orchestration is to transcribe from piano music into the orchestral form. You see wonderful examples of this and great models in Ravel's work on Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition, on Ravel's own transcriptions of his pieces into larger symphonic ensembles. Such pieces as the Mother Goose Suite, Pavane. There are many examples of this throughout Ravel's work. Debussy also transcribed many of his works for orchestra. It's worth studying these. The other thing one must do in order to learn orchestration is to score read. One can start with smaller works, with works from the classical era, which have smaller forces, fewer transposing instruments for all kinds of reasons. They are easier to deal with as a beginning score reader. Familiar scores are always good. Scores that you can carry with you, pocket scores that you can refer to, works that you can play them back in your head, or listen to them while reading the scores, and appreciate and really break down what is being done with the orchestra, what techniques the orchestrator is using. You'll find a great range of color, a great range of contrast in all of these scores, especially the Ravel and Debussy scores. But you'll find a great many orchestration techniques in Tchaikovsky, in Rimsky-Korsakov. These are wonderful orchestrators. Before you get to Stravinsky, you can start there with material that's very familiar, and it can be of great help making it, facilitating your entrance into this world of the orchestra and how it works. I'd also suggest that you take popular songs, preferably of the golden era. It's easier to deal with the standard American songbook of Gershwin, of Jerome Kern, Irving Berlin. Take one of these songs, write an arrangement for string orchestra and harp with vocal or instrumental solos. Then take the same song or another song, orchestrate it for symphonic ensemble. You'll learn a great deal about filling out textures, about voicing. When you're working in a conventional style where the ground rules are very traditional, and you're forced to grapple with making something that to some ears might sound trite, or that to some ears might sound over commercial, or conventional. Be that as it may, there are a lot of lessons to be learned about balance, about voicing, about using color within the orchestra to tell the story, to tell a narrative story of the song through music. Color consists of timbre, which is instrumentation, solo and in combinations, and texture, which can be weight, as applied to doubling of various instruments, combinations of instruments playing together in unison or in the octave. Contrast refers to the variety that one gets between sections, which is often a way of highlighting musical elements, musical phrases. The contrast can also involve articulation, dry and wet colors, pizzicati, bisbigliando on harp, murmuring in the strings and the winds, dynamics. We can look at the wide range of dynamics that we get from an orchestra, which might include elements such as percussion, swells, tremolos, snare rolls, cymbal rolls, brass swells, which can remarkably transform the volume level of our orchestra, of our music. Dynamics with the orchestra can range from the merest rustle, barely heard, almost a feeling sometimes, to a bang, to an extended, loud section. The other element to the orchestra, range. So within an orchestra, the tessitura high to low is extraordinary. It is greater than most popular music ensembles, from string bands to brass bands to wind bands. Each section is considerably more limited than the entire orchestra as a whole, from the highest piccolo note to the lowest tam-tam. Yeah, extraordinary range, which is one of the things you can bring to bear to show contrast in your music. Consider the orchestra a palette of colors. The ability of the good orchestrator to be able to transform those colors, to make them transparent, murky, to play between fast and slow, between exuberant effects and dark, brooding effects is remarkable. The ability to have contrasting colors, for example, low basses in cello simultaneously with high flutes and reeds, with a vacant space in the middle. Imagine in terms of the ability of one to, writing for film, to leave a space for voice, for dialogue, for effects. This range that the orchestra has provides great opportunities for clarifying the frequency spectrum, the elements that are going to be engaged in a film.
Hello. Hi.